Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for watching us. This is Estulin, and welcome to our YouTube internet-based show called World at Large. Today I want to talk to you about Project World War III. The countdown has begun. And so the overall goal is to create controlled chaos on a global scale, destroy humanity's entire power system, and also our broader way of life, cause a global war, and establish a new world order. And the main sacred project that the elite are implementing is the breakdown of the existing world order. In the United States of America, it's fashionable to go after hackers, but the main hackers do not sit in front of the computer. These are the ones who control the White House. And the henchmen of the world's elite act according to the meme, shock and awe of your system. Or to paraphrase a famous advertisement, are you still not eyeballs deep in the armed struggle? Then we will sabotage you till you are eyeballs deep in the armed struggle. And so they deliberately cross all kinds of red lines, undermine the foundations of international law, destabilize everything that can be destabilized, proving that the rules-based order is no more. Do you ever wonder why the worst president in America's history, President Biden, who can barely walk, barely talk, barely think, who's three-quarters demented, is still in charge of the United States, in charge, obviously, quote unquote. What you have to understand is that Biden is not the worst president of the United States, not at all. In fact, he is the best, the very best president of the United States, if we're to take his achievements to heart. In other words, he achieved what Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, the Bushes could not achieve together. And the main secret of his success is a complete lack of subjectivity and limited legal capacity. The mummy president does not interfere. On the contrary, he helps as best he can, backing all the terrible plans of his controllers, because grandpa is old, he doesn't care. He is asleep at the wheel. And when the nuclear winter comes, well, he'll already be dead. Now, going back to last year, I'm not at all surprised that suddenly the Iron Dome looked more like a calandra than a protective shield in Israel, and that the best intelligence service in the world, the Mossad, was not aware, they didn't know of Hamas's large-scale military campaign using heavy equipment, air defense systems, artillery. We didn't know. Now, anyone who has visited Israel and Palestine at least once, and even more so, those who are familiar with the security protocols and the work of the Mossad and the Tzahal, understand that this cannot happen, ever. And so the bloody massacre in Israel, the thousands, in the plural, Israeli dead, the terrible images of the tens of thousands, in the plural, Palestinian dead, which instantly flooded the world's media, weren't necessarily evil. They needed this evil for the controllers of the project to unleash this great full-scale war in the Middle East and light the fuse of the upcoming World War III. And so, as crazy and far-fetched as it may seem, the top leaders of Hamas and Israel, they play an agreed-upon scenario and are controlled from the same center without being co-conspirators. And it's no coincidence that the sources of their funding are the same. Unfortunately, my forecasts, which I've elaborated on repeatedly, are coming true. Ukraine is just the beginning, because the main theater of action will take place in the Middle East. This is Gog versus Magog. And so in recent years, global elite have planted explosives in all regional conflicts. And now the time has come for the main controlled explosion in the most sacred epicenter of the world, which will ensure absolutely 1,000% the chain reaction of all other conflicts around the world. Because the war in the Middle East is more than just a political conflict and a fight for territory. It is a sacred war, which these people have been at for thousands of years. And the key landmark will be the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Once destroyed, humanity will pass the point of no return. In an interview with the Sunday Times of London on June 15, 1969, Golda Meir said in response to a question about Palestinians, they, she said, don't exist. And so, due to this circumstance, the Israeli regime as a false colony is under the protection of the false metropolis, Great Britain and the United States of America. It's similar how a parasitic worm deposits its larvae in the body of its host, the United States in this case, and how its larvae feeds on the flesh of the United States of America, which gradually becomes a prototype of a predator. Approximately in the same way, the Illuminati replaced the Freemasons, devouring Freemasonry from within, turning into Athena, a pentacle, a star completely hidden from the Anglo-Saxon world from prying eyes. The Balfour Declaration and the subsequent war on the Zionists, according to the Athena Plan 1881-2081, that's a 200-year plan. Now, what is this plan? Any declaration in favor of Jewish ambitions inevitably leads to war. This was the case for thousands of years. And so the Balfour Declaration was a reverse projection of another war, World War I, which broke out without any compelling reason, quote unquote, in which the parties involved did not understand and still do not understand why they were fighting and what they were fighting for in the first place. Now, if you want to speak of conspiracy theories or coincidence theories, General Allenby's British military campaign in the Middle East in 1917, simultaneously with the October coup in Russia, called the Revolution, and the Balfour Declaration at the beginning of October 1917, these are key to understanding the true motives of those who initiated the First World War from behind the curtain. Now, in his famous work, The Illuminati and the Council of Foreign Relations, Myron Fagan, he wrote, long before Marconi invented the radio, Illuminati scientists, modern Athena, found a way for Albert Pike, that's famous American Freemason, and the heads of their council to communicate secretly. And it was the discovery of that same secrecy that allowed intelligence officers to understand how seemingly unrelated events across the world, such as the assassination of the Austrian prince in Serbia, occurred simultaneously and in concert with other events around the world leading to a war or a revolution. And so the plan was as simple as it was effective. He called for founding communism, Nazism, political Zionism, and other international movements, and using them to cause World War I, World War II, World War III, and at least 2 major revolutions. So let us remember Albert Pike's letter to his spiritual brother Giuseppe Mazzini on August 15, 1871. This is what he writes about the 3 world wars, which should lead to the establishment of what he called one world order. Pike claims to have received this prophecy supposedly from his spiritual mentor, and then in 1871, most who heard about it would have called it a complete nonsense, ludicrous. But let's give this letter a chance. Let's read, let's understand, let's comprehend what Pike writes in this letter to his Freemason brother Mazzini. I quote, "The First World War," he said, "must be started to allow the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia and in turn turn that country into a fortress of atheistic communism. Disagreements caused by Illuminati agents between British and German empires will be used to fuel this war, and at the end of this war, communism will be built and used to destroy other governments and weaken religions." And so history scholars recognize that the political alliances of England on the one hand and Germany on the other hand, created between 1871 and 1898 by Otto von Bismarck, Albert Pike's accomplice, played an important role in the start of the war. And so World War I was supposed to allow the Illuminati to overthrow Tsarism in Russia. The Rothschilds and other New World Order elite players called for this after Russian Tsar torpedoed their plan at the Congress of Vienna in 1815. And it was planned to turn Russia into a citadel of atheistic communism. And so disagreements between the British and the German empires, instigated by Illuminati agents, caused this war. And after the end of the war, communism had to strengthen itself to destroy other governments and weaken religion. Again, referring to what? Of course, to the Christian religion. The Second World War, Albert Pike wrote, must be started by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists on the one hand and the political Zionists on the other. And this war must be fought to destroy Nazism and for political Zionism to become strong enough to create a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. And during World War II, international communism must become strong enough to ballast Christendom, which will then be contained and controlled until we need it for the final social cataclysm. It should be noted here that Hitler was financed by the Warburgs, the Rothschilds, the Krupps, the Thysens, and other international bankers, and Hitler's alleged extermination of 6 million Jews did not in any way, shape, or form worry the Jewish international bankers at all, any more than the extermination of the poor, unfortunate in Gaza by the hundreds of thousands does not in any way, shape, or form worry the Arab sponsors of the armed terrorist groups the world over. As for Hitler, they needed this massacre to arouse hatred towards the German people throughout the entire world and thus provoke a war against him. In short, World War II was going to destroy Nazism and strengthen the power of political Zionism to the point that the state of Israel could be founded in Palestine. And after World War II, communism became strong enough to begin taking over weaker governments. And in 1945, at the Potsdam Conference between Truman and Churchill and Stalin, most of Europe was simply handed over to the Soviet Union, and on the other side of the war, the consequences of the war with Japan helped push the tide of communism towards China. Now, what did Albert Pike say about World War III? Now, he said that World War III must be initiated by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agents of the Illuminati, in other words, between the Zionist politicians and the leaders of the Islamic world. And this war must be fought in such a way that Islam, which is the Muslim Arab world, and political Zionism, which is the state of Israel, destroy each other. Meanwhile, he said, other nations, once again divided on this issue, will be forced to fight until complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economic exhaustion. Remember, you divide countries, divide everything into two. That's devil's work. You divide. What else did Albert Pike have to say? He said, we will give free rein to the nihilists and to the atheist, and we will provoke a formidable social cataclysm which in all its horror and clearly show the people the effect of absolute atheism, the origin of savagery and the bloodless riots. Then citizens everywhere the world over, forced to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate these destroyers of civilization, and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirit will henceforth remain without compass or direction, fighting for an ideal but without knowing where to give their worship. They will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of purity, the doctrine of Lucifer, the devil, which will finally be made public. And this manifestation will be the result of the general reactionary movement that will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, conquered and exterminated at the same time. And so, since the terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001, world events in the Middle East have shown growing unrest and instability between Jews on the one hand and Arabs on the other. This is entirely in line with the call to wage World War III between these two sides and their allies. And World War III is already looming, and today's events show us that it could become a reality at any moment. And according to Athens' plans, the Illuminati plans, World War III is scheduled for late summer, early fall 2025, unless, as the leaders of transnational capital and Athena call it, an accident or a special decision once again delays the final solution. I'm Daniel Estulin. Thanks so much for joining. Until tomorrow and a new episode of our series, The World at Large, on Daniel Estulin YouTube. Please join us for free or join our subscriber-based channel, estulin.media. Thanks again, and until tomorrow, goodbye.